Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Latvian on the home side, half English on the away side, and both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, when it comes to the Latvian brewery, I would say that they're best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. They also do some very good imperial stouts, and they've been doing quite a few kind of fruity, smoothie, Nordic, whatever you're going to call them, sour beers in recent times as well. I need to check those out, but they are one of the real pioneers of the Latvian craft beer scene, which I do recommend you check out. The English brewery, on the other hand, are most definitely best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, and that brewery as well were one of the real pioneers in the English craft beer scene within that particular style category. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of the Latvian brewery's latest releases here in Hong Kong. It's a style that I know both breweries can do very, very well, and I've heard very good things about this particular beer. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to head to Latvia in Europe and the Baltics. As I said, we're going to go to a little place called Eimuri, which you'll find to the kind of northeast of the capital Riga, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Ārpus Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Triple Dry Hopped Double 5 Double IPA. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one has been brewed in collaboration with the wonderful Cloudwater Brewing Company from Piccadilly in Manchester in England. So yeah, an 8% New England hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. This is another beer that I picked up at Out of the Brew in Central in Hong Kong. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting. Like I said, I heard very, very good things about this beer. My friends who are into the craft beer here in Hong Kong told me you need to do a review of this one. But yeah, definitely my first Latvian and English collaboration. If I'm not mistaken. I could well be wrong because there's so many beers on the channel these days. But yeah, it's the first one at least in a good little while. But yeah, definitely cool to see two very pioneering breweries in the respective countries come together to make this. So we'll see how we get on with it. But let's crack on and see what the beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Arpus and from Cloudwater, and we will no doubt add more to both of those lists at some point in the near future because both breweries appear fairly regularly here in Hong Kong. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Latvian playlist and the English playlist, since it is dual nationality. Both of those will be added to quite a bit over the next wee while, of course, and do make sure that you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Ārpus Brewing Company first, since they are the home brewery. Then we'll move on to Cloudwater. So Ārpus Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are from Latvia, and the company was founded back in 2017 by two homebrewers. This was Yurts Tihomirovs and Vladimirs Berezins, and these guys started off as a gypsy brewery, and at this point they were based primarily in Riga, but in the first year they brewed at 4 different breweries around the country, which they said really helped them understand different brewing equipment and how to operate it. But in 2019, they received funding from the Latvian Investment and Development Agency and also from the EU Agricultural Fund for Rural Development. And with this money, they invested around 200,000 euros in their own brewery facility in Eimuri in the Adazi region, which is to the northeast of Riga. But the new brewery helped them increase their output quite dramatically, and they apparently export about 90% of their total output. And this isn't uncommon in the Baltic countries because, you know, they are very small in terms of population. And you see similar business models in Estonia from the likes of Pojala, Puasta, Tanker, these kind of guys. And of course, you have many breweries now in Latvia and Lithuania kind of going at it as well. But the brewery are operating a 2,000 litre brew kit. They've got several 2,000 and 4,000 litre fermentation vessels, and the fermentation capacity has obviously been gradually expanded over the years. The name Arpus apparently is taken from a Latvian word that means outside of the box. So yeah, I guess the name is kind of outside of the box brewery, which is why they have this sort of box-shaped symbol. And as of October 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 80 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. Like I said to you, they're best known for the different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Quite a few good imperial stouts from them as well, and they do some very nice kind of fruity, juicy, smoothie sours from what I gather as well. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Ārpus Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the English side of things then. So Cloudwater Brewing Company, as I've mentioned already, are based in Piccadilly in Manchester, and the company was founded back in early 2015 by Paul Jones and James Campbell after the latter left Marble Brewing Company. So they were joined in the early days by Al Wall and Will France, both of whom had a wealth of experience in home brewing, professional brewing and also bar management, and the original brewery can be found in the Piccadilly Trading Estate, and they began brewing there in March of 2015, but they officially opened their on-site tap room in April of that year as well. Soon after this, they opened up an arch under Piccadilly Station which was called the Barrel Store, and this acted as both a tap room and a storage area for their barrel-aged beers. But in early 2017, they closed the on-site tap room to allow for an expanded production space to meet demand, and then in July of 2018, they closed the Barrel Store to open up a new space called Unit 9, which you'll find adjacent to the brewery. But they initially started off with a 2,400 litre brew kit, but they've increased this quite dramatically over the years. James Campbell left the brewery in September of 2018 to work as a brewing consultant, and he later founded his own nano brewery called Cervezas de Autor, so I need to look for some of their beers as well, need to see where you can get those. But for a period, they were actually contract brewing some of their beers at Brewdog in Ellon in Aberdeenshire in Scotland to sell in Tesco supermarkets. This arrangement though only lasted from 2021 to 2022, and in honesty, they got quite a lot of backlash for this because they abandoned a number of the independent retailers who'd helped them grow so much and gain a lot of their reputation. They are trying to repair that now from what I understand, but they've also added more venues to their portfolio over the years. This includes a tap room in Bermondsey down in London, the Sadler's Cat pub in Noma near Victoria Station in Manchester, and they've also got a new beer hall at Campus in Manchester too. But over the years, of course, this brewery built a very good reputation for their beers, notably the New England Hazy IPAs. They've been diversifying a lot in recent times and trying lots of different styles. But as of October 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 620 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. But there are other sources that are quite reliable that say they've produced well over 1,000 different kinds of beer. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Cloudwater Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. You can see the can is starting to sweat actually, which is unusual. It's not even that hot today, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, but like I said earlier, this one is called Triple Dry Hop Double 5 Double IPA. It comes in at 8% ABV. and it tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here. So it says Ārpus Brewing Company and Cloudwater Brewing Company, triple dry hop, double 5, double IPA. Cloudwater is an independent brewery founded in 2014 in Manchester, UK, focused on exciting new beers and hearty community experiences. This collaboration beer features 3 hops: Riwaka from New Zealand, Idaho 7 and Simcoe from the US. The photo on the label and the beer's name are from a late night darts game of 301 double out played in a bar in Helsinki, Finland. The match was between James from Cloudwater and Yurts from Arpus, and the winning throw being a double 5. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, you can see it is quite nicely presented there. You can see the Arpus Brewing Company square at the top of this, and then of course you've got the Cloudwater symbol below. But 440 milliliter can. This one I believe cost me 100 Hong Kong dollars, which is about £10 sterling, maybe 11 euros, $12 American, something like that. So yeah, for an import beer, not too bad when you consider the Hong Kong prices, but obviously beer is more expensive in Hong Kong. But yeah, the hops in this one, Riwaka from New Zealand we know quite well. Quite a lot of grapefruity character from that, pink grapefruit really, about 6% alpha acid. Idaho 7, 14% alpha acid, American hop. That's going to give you lots of soft, nice, juicy tropical fruits like mangoes, papayas, apricots, and stuff like that. And then Simcoe is going to give you a lot of passion fruit. That's about 12% alpha acid, that one. And again, it's American. But yeah, double IPA, this one, a style I've had from both breweries quite a few times before, and one that I know both breweries can do very, very well. So let's get this guy out into the glass and just see what it's all about. I am really, really curious about this one. And as I say, I've heard very good things about it too. So yeah, let's do this. Ooh. Very pale in terms of its colour. So yeah, I think that will do for the moment in terms of just taking a look and looking at the aroma. But yeah, we've poured maybe about 75%, 80% of the beer out and into the glass, and you can see that it's poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. If I bring that up to the camera, you can see the head on this one's quite nice. You can see lots of little really small bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, and it gets a little bit kind of foamier and soapier the further up that you go. But yeah, colour wise, this one looks very, very nice. Actually one of the paler New Englands that I've come across in recent times. So I would describe this one as being like a sort of mixed a sort of mango pineapple juice type colour. I always like comparing the different New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what their appearance reminds me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't have to care about that all that much when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. I will say as well that the level of haze in this beer for an 8%er is pretty damn impressive. This one really is leaning toward that more kind of soupy, gloopy part of the spectrum. So yeah, remember the level of haze in these New England IPAs depends on oat content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and even beer to beer. So yeah, that's obviously at play in this one. But you can see good level of haze in this one. If I put my hand behind it there, it's got a hell of an opacity to it. Good little bit of lots of little haze to this one. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation. But yeah, all in all, it looks pretty damn good, I have to say. I'm really curious to try this one. But I don't think we need to say anything more about the appearance of this beer. You can see the head has just faded away to be a very thin, kind of wispy layer. Then you've got that nice ring around the edge of the glass. But all in all, it looks really nice, this one. And yeah, I'm just very curious to try it. So let's have a wee look at the aroma then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So like I say, I heard so many good things about this one. Oh, that's interesting. I think this is pretty damn fresh. You can actually smell almost like you can smell it. If you've ever done a little bit of home brewing, there's a distinctive smell from like spent grains and stuff. It almost still has a little bit of that aroma to it. Has got just this grainy sweetness to it, which is interesting. But aroma-wise, it's quite nice, but a little bit unusual. Quite a lot of brown bread in this one. Not quite what I was expecting, in honesty. But above that, you get other things that you would expect. So yeah, a lot of brown bread for me coming out of this. Did not expect that kind of big brown bready aroma out of it, but it still smells really nice. So one thing for me to remember with New England hazies is I think there's like 6 elements in these beers to think about when it comes to the yeasty and malty side of things. You've got the kind of farmhousey yeasty type character and the rye lean and grainy side of things. Those are a little bit more common in the kind of New England brewed New England IPAs, but as the style has evolved and moved to other places, it tends to focus a little bit more on wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also a sweeter side of things. For me, the aroma of this one's quite interesting because it goes back to this kind of like rusticy, brown bready type character that you see in breweries like Lawson's Finest Liquids and Alchemist. They've got a little bit of that more yeasty character. You have to remember that in New England, this style started off as like a kind of farmhouse IPA. So you get a little bit of that sort of vibe out of this beer, which I think is really interesting. Maybe it's leaning a little bit more toward the kind of yeasty side of things, actually. But yeah, you do get a good little bit of barley malt out of this one, but it really does lean more toward the kind of yeasty side of things. I'm not getting big wheaty bitiness or like big oaty creaminess out of it. Yeah, it's interesting. So let's just break the aroma of this one down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So, the backbone of this beer, you've got some really nice, kind of like fresh, brown bready bread crust coming out of this beer. So yeah, fresh brown bready bread crust forming the backbone of this one. There's a good little bit of, there is a little touch of woodiness to this one, and quite a wee bit of cracker, I would say. But yeah, the backbone of the beer is that big kind of fresh brown bready bread crust. Above that, you start to get some really nice brown bready character in the beer. So for me, that nice big kind of brown bready sort of note is it's quite sweet in a sense. So it's got a little bit of graininess to it, but it does have that good little bit of sweetness to it. Above that, you do get a kind of quite rich white bread out of the beer too. And once your nose adjusts to it and kind of gets past that initial sort of graininess that the beer has, you start to smell the wheat. You can smell like a kind of barley malt wheaty sort of white bread out of this one, but you can also smell that more dense white bready character from the wheat malt that's in here. Further back in the nose, of course, you're getting a little touch of bitiness out of it, but I would say that generally the vibe of this beer is pretty smooth. But there's a good oaty character to this one as well, and the oats are quite creamy. As I've often said, with New England IPAs, the oats can be quite a good rough indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the creamier the oats smell and taste, the fresher the beer is, the older they are, the kind of drier. The drier they are, the kind of older the beer is, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's a lovely oaty creaminess to this one as well. There is a little touch of sweetness to it, maybe a little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, a wee bit of biscuit in there as well. It smells like Golden Promise malt in this one, in all honesty. I know that Cloudwater like to use that, so that Golden Promise note, that little bit of McVitie's Digestive biscuit, and that wee tiny touch of like Werther's Original is coming out of this one quite a lot, actually. So yeah, just bear that in mind with this particular beer. But yeah, the yeasty side of the beer at the back of the nose is again quite brown bready. So yeah, a good little bit of brown bready character in there. Some really nice brown bready character in there. Some really nice I would say yeah, like more kind of crackery vibe. So yeah, the yeasty character of this beer, more kind of brown bready, a little bit of a more crackery note to it, and a wee bit of kind of white bready character in there as well. So yeah, the malty and yeasty side of this one is quite interesting. It's a little bit more old school New England, but quite brown bready leaning for me. But once your nose adjusts to it a little bit, you'll get the other things. So yeah, I like that. I do like that about this beer. So on the hoppy side of the beer, for me, there's a good little bit of, there's a nice little bit of floral aromaticity, but the hoppy side of this beer is pretty smooth. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Simcoe in this one is cryo actually, just because of how smooth the green component is. But yeah, for me, the green component, very slight amount of earthiness, but yeah, minimum. Your green component is mostly kind of floral. There's a little bit of a kind of vegetable note in there as well. So yeah, bit earthy, bit vegetal, but mainly kind of floral, and you've got a nice grassiness in there as well, kind of like a leafy, like freshly cut wet grass coming out of this one. But yeah, very smooth. So I think there's cryo in this. But remember, you have 3 types of hoppings when it comes to IPAs. You've got early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. That gives you, it gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you quite a bright green component in terms of flavour and aroma. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That's all about flavour and aroma, no bitterness at all, and yeah, that's going to give you a very bright green component once again. But New England IPAs tend to rely on late edition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they're kind of deeper, danker, and more bitter, if you like. So yeah, interesting stuff with this one, but yeah, you've got a very bright and kind of oily and smooth green component in here. Let's focus on the fruity side of the beer just to round off the aroma so we can actually taste the thing. So for me, if we focus on the fruity side of things, it's got the fruity side of this beer, it's got a little bit of, there, you can smell a little bit of that kind of bright pink grapefruit from the Riwaka in there. That's quite obvious. But yeah, the fruity side of this one's a little bit more, yeah, it's definitely a little bit more, I would say, mango leaning. You get quite a lot of mango out of this. There's a little bit of the peachy, there's a little touch of peach on this, which I think can come from Idaho 7, but lots and lots of juicy mango. There's apricot, there's pineapple, the passion fruit's in there as well. Yeah, it's mainly tropical fruits coming out of this one. But the pink grapefruit from the Riwaka, the softer passion fruit, big juicy mango, and yeah, apricots, pineapple and stuff like this. I think the Idaho 7's kind of taken centre stage when it comes to the fruity side of things. And then the Simcoe's adding a wee bit of smoothness, and the Riwaka's just adding like a little bit of more kind of punch to it in a sense. So yeah, interesting combination of things, but definitely a more kind of grainy and brown bready leaning aroma from this particular beer, which I wasn't quite expecting in honesty. But it's been a wee while since I've had a New England hazy from Arpus, in fact. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time for us to taste this one now. So this one is the triple dry hop, double 5, double IPA, and 8% New England hazy, imperial double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, from Ārpus Brewing Co in Eimuri and Adaji in Latvia, in collaboration with Cloudwater Brewing Co from Piccadilly in Manchester in England. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers, or as I believe they say in Latvian, I svetika. Let's try it. Ooh. That's quite interesting. Again, quite a, yeah, this is a little bit more kind of old school yeah, it has a little bit more of that yeasty brown bready character to it, which is quite interesting. But it's got all the big kind of creamy characters. I mean, from my experience, the Arpus New England Hazy's always tended to be a little bit more oaty and creamy, whereas the Cloudwater ones, they always tended to be, they could be a mix of different things. Granted, I've not had too many from Arpus, but that's just a sort of ingrained impression that I have actually. But yeah, this is nice, very smooth, very creamy New England IPA, this one. So it leans more toward the oats as the, which is something you wouldn't have expected so much from the aroma, in all honesty, because the oats take a bit of a back seat. So yeah, big, creamy, smooth New England double IPA, this one, but it has quite a little bit of that yeasty character to it as well. But it's very good, so big thumbs up to both breweries involved in this one for sure. Yeah. And as you take your second sip, you know, the beer starts to like sweeten out and smoothen out a wee bit, I guess we could say. So yeah, I really like how that goes together in this one. But yeah, solid New England double, this one, but I wouldn't expect any less of these two breweries. But yeah, quite oaty leaning, very smooth and lovely, soft and juicy fruity. Let's go to the middle of your palate then with this beer. So yeah, middle third of your palate. The backbone of the beer is that lovely, soft, kind of fresh white bready bread crust, like a kind of hedgehog roll or something. So yeah, lovely soft white bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward, you get a little touch of you get a little touch of a more woody type character. The woodiness comes out into the aftertaste, I would say. And then yeah, above the bread crust, you have a little bit more of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery note out of it too. So yeah, I like that. So yeah, the backbone of your beer is mostly bread crusty, a little bit woody, a little bit sort of crackery. Yeah. So above that, you start to get the kind of bready, malty side of the beer. So yeah, for me, above the kind of crackery note, there's a layer of quite dense, but slightly dry and slightly sweet wholemeal brown bread. And then above that, you can feel that there's another dense and slightly more airy and dry, like white bready character. These are the kind of barley malt layers in the beer. But then above that, you've got the really dense, kind of compact white bready character coming out of this one as well, and that's the wheat that's going to give you that. So toward the back of the palate, you get more bitiness out of the wheat, but as you come further forward, you're getting a little bit of smoothness. I mean, remember that sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back, generally speaking. So yeah, you've got the barley malt brown bread, the barley malt white bread, and then you've got the more dense and smooth wheaty character coming out of this one. So yeah, I really do like how that pieces together. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice. On top of the wheaty character then, the wheat does get a little bit bitier into the aftertaste too, I would point that out. But above the wheaty character, you start to get the oaty side of the beer. So if you go down the middle line of your palate, you can feel you've got that lovely big, creamy, smooth, oaty character there. And as you move out toward the edges of your palate, you've got a wee bit more of a kind of dryness to the beer, which I think is really nice. So yeah, lovely creamy oaty notes coming out of this one, and then yeah, you've got the kind of drier side of the oats as well. But in the dead centre of your palate, you've got that lovely kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of note to the beer. It's not too sweet, this one, I would say, definitely not overly sweet. But yeah, you have got that little bit of sweetness there, and you can feel a wee bit of biscuity character as you move out toward the edges of that middle third of your palate there. I'm pretty sure there's golden promise in this. Pretty almost certain there's golden promise in this one. So yeah, a little bit of sweetness in the middle of the palate and a wee bit more kind of biscuity character further out. So yeah, I like how that goes together. But yeah, this is pretty damn solid. Yeah, so on the, I think we've covered everything we really need to say about the middle third of your palate with this beer, honestly. Let's go to the back third of the palate. And as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the barley malt white bread in the middle, then the wheaty white bread on the top, and the wheaty character there gives you a little bit of bitiness. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate is the bread crust, which is a bit drier. You've got the cracker above that, the wholemeal brown bread sits above it, which is a little bit lighter, taller and more airy and a wee bit drier too. Then you've got the white bready notes sitting above that, which is a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. And then yeah, you've got the wheaty character that sits above that, which again is a little bit more bitey almost. So yeah, lovely little bit of a more kind of bitey, wheaty character in there. So yeah, that wheaty, bitey, bready note is quite nice in this beer as well. And that lingers into the aftertaste too, but above everything else on the back third of the palate, you start to get the yeasty side of the beer. So the yeasty side of this one, as I say, is a bit interesting because it's a little bit more old school New England. So at its core, it has this sort of like really grainy, pardon me, and quite dense brown bready note to it. So that's in the core there. Then around the edge, you have a more, around the edge of that, you have a wee bit more of like a more really grainy brown bread in the middle, then a more sweet brown bread around the edge, and then a kind of dry, crackery bread crusty character. So the yeasty character is leaning all toward that kind of brown bready side of things, and like I say, that sits on top of the back third of your palate there. But yeah, the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that all of that just kind of pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, the back corners of the palate of the back corners of your palate here, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you move further forward, it's got a little bit of a woody, herbally sort of thing, which is kind of interesting, because none of these hops would really give you that as far as I'm aware. But yeah, as you come further forward, you can feel there's a good little bit of floral aromaticity there. It's almost a little bit spicy on the front corners of the palate, but then yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, it's definitely that little bit lighter and more grassy, but the green component is very smooth, so I suspect the Simcoe that's in this one could be cryo or something. But let's focus on the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things, just to round off the flavour section of this video. So yeah, border region between front and middle third of your palates, then you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bread on the top, and the base of the front third of your palate, yeah, you've got the bread crusty sort of notes there. You've got the cracker, the brown bread, the white bread, and then the wheaty notes, which are very, very smooth. And then it's that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll the way out of the beer. So let's look at the fruity esters in this one then to round off. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer for me, it's the fruity side of this beer for me is kind of what you would expect if you know these hops. It's very soft and kind of tropical leaning at the back, and that oily bubble, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, it's very much, you've got that pink grapefruity note in there, which is really, really apparent, and that's the Riwaka that's going to give you that. As you move further forward, you can feel that we move more into the tropical fruity note. So yeah, you've got that pink grapefruity note, and as you come further forward from that, there's a lovely sort of you have this kind of like, there's a bit of a peachy note above it, but then yeah, as you move further forward from that, you can feel there's a really nice juicy mango, which is going to be from your Idaho 7. And underneath, like, it's almost like the Simcoe is kind of giving you the backbone. It's the passion fruit that sits underneath, and as you move further forward toward the middle of that front third palate, it becomes a more sort of apricot-y type note. So I think Simcoe is the one that's giving you that sort of backbone. But yeah, the juicy mango from the Idaho 7 sits on top of that. I want to say there's a wee bit of peach there, but the grapefruit from the Ruaka kind of lingers into the aftertaste. And I think the Ruaka is the one that's giving you the kind of, this beer does develop a little bit of a floral spicy character into the aftertaste too. So yeah, you've got the pink grapefruit on the top at the back. As you move further forward, you've got the kind of passion fruit from the Simcoe in the base, but yeah, juicy mango from the Idaho 7 on top. As you reach the middle of that front third palate, it's like soft apricots and maybe papayas, like really soft papayas as you move into the front half of that front third palate, and there's wee bits of like pineapple and juicy pineapple and stuff just sitting on top of it. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer is really quite interesting, quite different to what I've had in recent times, because it doesn't have a more citrusy leaning hop actually, which is kind of interesting. Although maybe you could argue the grapefruit side of Ruaka is kind of citrusy in that way. But yeah, all in all, the way this one goes together is really nice. I do like what this beer is doing. So more of an old school, like farmhousey type New England IPA, like an old school New England IPA, I think is a good way to describe this one. So yeah, kudos to Arpus and Cloudwater for trying something a wee bit different. But I think we can leave it at that for the flavour section. Let's just round off the review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, I would say for an 8%er, this is one of the thicker and more oily New England IPAs that I've had. So I think this one is bottom end to full bodied for me. Carbonation is very, very smooth. Like I say, a sort of slick oiliness to this one, but it does have that creaminess that becomes more apparent in the aftertaste. IBU in this one is pretty low. I would say it's probably about 25 or 30. Although you do get a wee bit of bitter spiciness from the Ruaka into the aftertaste. The malt base, like we said, there's a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a wee bit of kind of creaminess on top, which I do like. And then yeah, you've got that nice kind of juicy, fruity character coming out of it the further you go into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, all in all, the way that everything pieces together in this one is really, really nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, very happy with this one. The Double 5, a triple dry hopped New England double IPA from Ārpus Brewing Company and Eimuri Adagi in Latvia, in collaboration with Cloudwater Brewing Company from Piccadilly in Manchester. Really cool to review this one, and quite interesting to try like an old school New England farmhouse type hazy IPA from two European breweries. It's not something you find all that often. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Arpus and from Cloudwater Brewing Company. We will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the future, but do give me some other Latvian and English brewery recommendations, and we'll see about checking out those on the channel fairly soon. But till the next time, check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and I'll catch you guys again very, very soon. Ciao just now.